Hey everybody, Steve Billman here. Thanks for joining me. Hey, today we're going to continue my series called Harmony for Songwriters. This will be the second video. And in the first video, we talked about the major scale, and to be more exact, the G major scale. We identified the pitches in the scale, and we also identified that there was one sharp in that particular key, in the key of G major, and that was F sharp. Then we took each scale note and we harmonized it in thirds, and we came up with a system of chords that represented major chords, minor chords, and one diminished chord. And with that, then I identified two chord types that we were going to eventually deal with. One was the triad, which was the root, the third, and the fifth of each chord. And then the other was the seventh chord, which had the root, third, fifth in it, but then also had the seventh. So the triads were 3-note chords, and the seventh chords were 4-note chords. And I also said that for the first few videos, we're just going to deal with the triads. So that's what we're going to deal with again today, just the 3-note chords, okay? So that was the first video. I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen that video, to go and check it out. Especially if you're not sure too much about harmony and theory, it would be a good one to see before you watch this second one. But today, this is a fun one. We're going to now take those chords that we identified in that first video, and we're going to put them into one of three categories. These categories we call chord families. And again, there will be three of them. Now, I think of them as categories, but I also like to think of them physically as boxes. So if you have a sheet of paper, you can write three sort of large boxes right next to each other. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of the chords that we harmonized in the first video, and each one of those chords is going to fit into one of those boxes. And eventually, what's cool, I won't get into it now, but in later videos, this is going to help us as we write our chord progressions to write better chord progressions. So we'll come back to these boxes as in the next few videos, and this will help us to design our chord progression in really interesting and better ways. Okay, so let's start with just identifying what each category is, and then we'll go and we'll put each one of these chords into the categories. So the first box, or the first category, we're going to call the tonic chord family. So if you're writing the box, make the box, and then above it, just put tonic chord family. And that's going to be that's going to represent chords that are resolved, that are at rest, that are sort of at peace. They're not really moving anywhere, and they're not tense chords. It's more resolved. Okay, that's the first category, the tonic chord family. The second category, the subdominant chord family, they're not going to be chords of rest. They're going to be chords of motion, of movement. They're going to be chords that are taking us somewhere, but we're really not sure. We're on a journey, but we're not there yet, and we're really not sure where we're going. But we know it's going to be somewhere cool. So that's the second category, the subdominant chord family. The third box, or third category, is what we call the dominant chord family. And in that chord family, those chords are going to represent tension. They're going to represent something that needs to be resolved. And most of the time, that resolution from that dominant chord box or category is going to lead us back to the tonic category. Okay, so the first box, the tonic chord family, is a place of rest, resolution. The second box, second chord family, the subdominant chord family, is a place of motion. It's going somewhere. And then the third box is representing the dominant chord family, and those are chords that are tense, that need resolution. Okay, and those sort of functions that I just went through and told you that I just talked about, that's going to help us as we're writing our progressions, because part of writing these progressions is sort of manipulating, not in a negative way, but manipulating people's emotions to feel certain things. And so these categories are going to help us as we're writing our chord progression to give that to people, those feelings. All right, so let's take the chords now and let's put them into each category. So I already gave the first one away. And actually, before I do that, let's just review the chords. So in the key of G major, the 1 chord is G major, 2 chord, A minor, 3 chord, B minor, 4 chord, C major, 5 chord, D major, 6 chord, E minor, and then the 7th chord, the last chord, is that F sharp diminished, the funny sounding chord. Okay? All right. So for the tonic chord family, obviously I already said it, the 1 chord. Now we're going to identify these chords not only with the letter of the chord, but also the Roman numeral. And the Roman numeral is just representing the scale steps. So the 1 chord is the first note of the scale. The 2 chord is the second note of the scale, and so forth. But one thing to remember is that the Roman numerals are represented for major chords. The Roman numerals are represented as an uppercase Roman numeral. And for the minor chords, it's represented as a lowercase Roman numeral. For the diminished chord, it's a lowercase Roman numeral with the little percentage sign or the circle identifying it as diminished. Okay? So when we do this and we put these in the boxes, we are going to represent not only the letter of the chord, but also the Roman numeral of the chord. Because when we go to different keys, the Roman numeral is what we're going to use to transpose into different keys. It's going to be a very swift and cool way to transpose these chord qualities into different keys. Remember I said that the chord names, the actual letters will change as you go to different keys, but the chord qualities will stay the same. So the 1 chord, no matter what key you're in, is always major. The 2 chord, no matter what key you're in, is always minor. And again, we're talking about the major scale here. Okay? So that's the idea. So I'm going to identify with the letter, but also with the Roman numeral. Okay. So the first chord, G major, that's the first chord in the tonic chord family. And again, I identified as G major or uppercase Roman numeral 1. The next chord in the tonic chord family is the 3rd chord. So 3 steps up is B. And we know that the 3rd chord is minor. So the 2nd chord in the tonic family is going to be B minor, in this case, the key of G. Or we represent it with the lowercase Roman numeral 3, 3 minor. Okay? There's one more chord in this tonic chord family. If I go up 6 scale steps, I land on an E, and we know that the 6th chord is an E minor chord in this case. So I have an E minor chord, but it's also represented as a lowercase 6 minor. All right? So again, the tonic family, 1 chord, G major. The second one, B minor or 3 minor. Then the 3rd chord, E minor or 6 minor. All right? So those 3 chords are represented in the tonic chord family. Now, the 1 chord is always going to be more resolved than the other 2 chords, but they still have a sense of more resolution than they do of emotion and tension. And the other thing is what you'll find, and we'll get into this probably later, is that the reason these chords work in these chord families is because they have at least 2, or if you're dealing with 7 chords, a lot of them have 3 notes that are common in each one of the chords. So that's why these chords are considered the same family. Okay? And I'll kind of explain that a little bit more later, but not today. All right, so the next category, subdominant chord family. Now we're going to take the 2nd note of the scale, which is A, and the chord will be A minor. So that will be A minor or 2 minor, lowercase 2 minor. That's going to be the first chord in the subdominant chord family. And that, again, is going to give us the feel of sort of going somewhere. It's not resolved, it's not tense, it's just going somewhere. And the other chord will be the 4 chord, and in G major, it'll be a C major chord. So remember, the 4 chord is major, so C major and Roman numeral uppercase letter 4. Okay, so in that category there are only two. It's the 2 chord A minor, and it's the 4 chord C major in the key of G. All right, so there are 5 chords there. We only have 2 left. Those are going to go in the last category, which is the dominant chord family. All right, so if we go up 5 scale steps, we land on a D, and we know that the 5 chord in G major is a D major chord. So our first chord in the dominant chord family is D major. If I go up 7 steps of the scale, there's only 1 chord left. I land on that F sharp. And we know that the 7th chord is that scary sounding diminished chord, F sharp diminished. So that's the 2nd chord in the dominant chord family. Now again, the 5 chord, D major, and the 7 chord, F sharp diminished, are going to give us a feel of tension, of wanting to find resolution. And that resolution usually comes from the tonic chord family. Okay, and a lot of times if I go D, then my resolution will be at the G chord. All right, so that's it for this video. So just sort of to recap, the tonic chord family chords are the 1 chord, in this case G major, the 3 minor chord, in this case B minor, and the 6 minor chord, in this case E minor. Those are all in the box or the category of tonic. The subdominant chord family, the 2 minor chord, or in this case A minor, and the 4 major chord, in this case C major. And then the final category, the dominant chord family, we have the 5 chord, in this case D major, and the 7th chord, this case F sharp diminished. All right. So what I want you to do for sort of homework on this particular video is, in the key of G, I just want you to memorize those 3 boxes. So, and when I say memorize, I mean understand the letter of the chord in G major, but also understand the Roman numeral of each one of those chords. So again, in the tonic family, you have 3 chords with 3 Roman numerals. You want to memorize that in the tonic chord family. Subdominant chord family, you have 2 chords with Roman numerals. Memorize that. With the dominant chord family, the same thing. When you have this stuff memorized, then it becomes a tool that you can sort of use as you're writing your songs. For a while, if you have to have a sheet of paper to kind of help you through it, that's okay. But eventually, you want to have this stuff memorized, because it's going to be stuff that you're going to constantly use as you're writing these progressions for your songs. Okay? All right, everybody, that was a lot. I hope it helped. I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for spending the time with me. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.